Well, good morning, everybody. I appreciate you taking the time to come and meet with me today, where we're talking a little bit about fire prevention and how it relates to you and your particular business. And I appreciate you taking the time to meet. So hopefully we can find something beneficial. So fire prevention has basic concepts of education, enforcement, and engineering. That's basically fire prevention is defined as the effort to decrease the chances of unwanted ignition and to some extent to limit the spread of fire by methods that are independent of action taken after an ignition occurs. Now, what that means is we're going to try and get out in front of the fire rather than dealing with the aftermath. That's the basic tenet of fire prevention. And the fire prevention bureaus that they have here with the state fire marshal, Ada County, and the city of Boise, very proactive in the fire prevention. The Boise branch or division is comprised of 4 primary pillars: fire investigation, inspection, code enforcement, plans review, and public education. Now, each of these is really important. Of course, fire investigation, we want to know how it happened so we can prevent it. The inspection and code enforcement, this is what every business owner dreads. The fire department representatives show up and want to take a tour of your plant. This is not to write fines, and this is not to gain revenue. This is to ensure that your employees are safe, you're safe. Plans review is getting again with the architect or the designer and looking at these, making sure it is as fire safe as possible. And then public education, letting everybody know the statistics, hints, guidance on how to make your home safer, your school safer, nursing home, church, mall, everything is, fire doesn't discriminate. So the 3 E's, the basic concept of fire prevention is education, engineering, and fire inspection and code enforcement. So look a little bit at engineering. Engineering actions that employ physical science to find solutions for reducing the impact or eliminating the risk of fire that may involve the development of codes, standards, equipment, system, and construction techniques. Those construction techniques are innovated all the time. Everything is changing. So it's important for us to have an engineering staff that can look at the blueprints, look at, get with the designer and the architect to make sure that the building is safe. When new buildings, residential, modification, change of occupancy in existing buildings will be put in, the plans examiner, a certified fire marshal, fire engineer will review the construction plans to ensure they meet model building codes adopted by the jurisdiction. The IBC, International Building Code, is the most common building code in the US, and they use it everywhere. And fire prevention codes are most frequently administered and enforced by the fire department. And many model fire codes, such as the UFC, which is the Uniform Fire Code, and the International Code Council. So the fire department is responsible for inspecting and, if need be, enforcing compliance through, a fine. But, we would rather not worry about a fine. We just want to make sure the building is safe. So overall engineering and plans review ensures that before anything is constructed, it's held to the current standard for code, fire safety, and the design as adopted by the local jurisdiction. So the engineer, his role is to get in there and look at these plans before the building is built, and rapidly as possible, because time is money to a builder, make these modifications that are needed rather than doing it afterwards. Now, education, public education leads to community resilience and helps the fire departments by reducing risk. That helps the firefighters on the fire ground, of course, and the average citizen. This is for them, for their protection. One of the most important things to successful fire prevention or public education initiatives, programs, or messages and is to create partnerships that help spread the message to as many people as possible. So whether it's town council meetings, whether it's going to schools, whether it's radio ads, whether anything to spread the message of fire prevention. Americans seem to be very apathetic towards fire. It always happens to somebody else. It never happens here. We need to change that status quo. So fire inspection and code enforcement, the inspection and code enforcement is often the largest division of the fire prevention program, and it is a substantial department here in the city of Boise County, Ada County. Inspection and code enforcement ensures that new and existing buildings are maintaining fire-safe operations for the customers and for the public safety members. Now, when an inspection is complete, a report is created. It's noted if there's any code violations that will need follow-up inspection. So they'll come out, they're going to check your fire extinguishers, they're going to check your lighting, their exit, your egress, they're going to check for power strips nailed to the wall. They're going to check for frayed cable. They're going to check these basic items, and they will do an inspection, and they will let you know what you need to resolve. And of course, you want to resolve the issue rather than get a fine. Being a fire inspector is challenging. Going out there trying to, asking, to come on the property, and some people are very cooperative, others are not so cooperative. So the ability for a fire inspector to represent the department in a professional manner is critical to the success of the program. And, we want these people to cooperate. And again, we're doing this to save lives, not to raise revenue. Now, how is the code enforced in Boise? In Ada County, Idaho, the code enforcement specialist will investigate written and verbal complaints concerning land use and building code issues in unincorporated Ada County. Substantiated violations are enforced within the limitations of the Ada County zoning ordinance, state statutes, and the International Building Code. So violations outside the city limits are investigated by the Ada County code enforcement specialist, who is overseen by the planning and zoning administrator in the development services department. So you have two tiers here. Ada County is responsible for this, not Boise Fire Department for the code enforcement, and likewise the county for unincorporated outside the city limits. This is done in concert with the Boise City Fire Prevention Unit. Now, how does Boise and the state of Idaho apply code to new and existing occupancies? Well, the Plan Review Office of the Fire Prevention Division works with the Boise City Planning and Development Services Department on commercial and residential subdivisions, design review, annexations, rezoning, conditional use permits, staff level permits, variance requests, and they verify the compliance of non-building agreements. So the Plan and Review Office of the Fire Prevention in Boise is a pretty substantial department with quite a few employees that ensure, the codes are correct for these types of structures. Developers can receive advice on plans prior to city council approval. Annexations and rezoning within the city limits is monitored by the Boise Fire Department, so those areas will have adequate fire protection. So you can see this is an effort between county, city, and state, each having their own individual responsibilities, but it all centers back to Boise Fire Prevention. Now, local organizations that determine fire resistance of building materials, the Idaho State Fire Marshal provides a reasonable degree of safety to life and property from fire and hazards through enforcement of the state's adopted fire codes. And they provide guidance on fire resistance of building materials and are responsible for plan review on all new and remodeled state buildings for compliance with adopted fire codes, inspecting and testing new fire sprinkler systems in all new and remodeled state buildings, training and certification provided to local authorities who apply the provisions of the adopted statewide fire code. So the Idaho State Fire Marshal is very active as far as determining the resistance ratings, and again, in concert with Boise Fire Department and Ada County. The types of tests used to determine fire ratings of certain buildings and components, materials in Idaho. The fire ratings of how a given material or assembly will perform in a fire. Terms that have been defined include combustible, non-combustible, fire resistant, resistance, and ignition resistance. So fire protection rating of opening protectives, wood assemblies, glazing, drywall, steel, all of these components have to meet code regulations for hours as far as their resistance. And of course, sprinkling, very, very important. And hopefully we get sprinkling mandatory in residential homes, which will help a lot. Fire tests and fire ratings are a key component of the inspection and code enforcement in Ada County and the city of Boise. And again, at the outset, while the building is being designed, they're going to work with the fire engineer to determine the ratings and recommendations and demands for a safe building. So I appreciate you taking a little time today to talk to us, and hopefully get some of everybody had a little more knowledgeable about fire prevention, which is certainly getting out in front of the fire and not lamenting after the fire is done. And if there is a tragedy or deaths involved, we always react after the event, but we want to get out in front of it. And you can see in the last 50 years how the statistics have changed just with a little bit of prevention. So again, the basic concepts, education, enforcement, and engineering makes up the fire prevention team at Boise. And again, my name is Gary Hendrickson. I appreciate you taking the time. And any questions, don't hesitate to call. Thank you.